All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a few more guests trickling in. And while we are getting started and going through all these introductions, if you would like to introduce yourself, go ahead and drop a comment in the chat. Say hello, let everyone know where you're calling in from. So good morning, good afternoon, good lunchtime to you, wherever you are. I just wanted to thank everyone for finding the time and joining today's webinar. Coming off of a long holiday weekend during the industry's busiest time of the year, I certainly know it's not easy to make time for things like this, so I do appreciate you being here. My name is Danielle Look. I'm the content marketing manager at Team Engine, where we provide software to recruit, retain, and engage your deskless workforce. I think we have a few Team Engine customers on the webinar today. And if you're in the chat introducing yourself, please let us know if you are a Team Engine customer. But I'm also very excited to see a lot of new folks on the call as well. Now, you all are here because we're talking about hiring and retention in the midst of a labor shortage. And while Team Engine is a tool to help you grow and engage your workforce, we wanted an expert who could speak to the nuances of finding and keeping talent in the green industry specifically. So who better than Jeffrey Scott, right? Now, if you don't know who Jeffrey is, he's the leading authority on growth and profit maximization in the landscape industry. He has consulted with over 300 lawn and landscape companies over the past 14 plus years. His clients achieve between 25% and 200% profit improvement in their first year alone. And Jeffrey also runs the largest peer group community in the industry. And joining Jeffrey today is Lara Beckemeier, VP of Human Resources and Administration at Landesign, which is one of Jeffrey's clients. And Lara is here to share specific examples of how she and Landesign have put Jeffrey's advice into practice and the excellent outcomes they're seeing as a result. So with that, I'm going to hand it over and let Jeffrey take over.
Thank you so much, Danielle.
Thanks, Jeffrey. We're excited to have you.
Thank you. Do you want me to take off here?
Yeah, please do. Kick it off.
Can you pin me or can I pin myself?
Let me see here.
So can you guys all see me and hear me? I see John out there says hello, so that means he at least can see me. Yes, excellent. So the real question, since we're talking about recruiting and retention, is which comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? Recruiting or retention. And I know the urgency is in recruiting, but the magic is in the retention. And we've got time here. Let's start with the magic first. Let's start with retention and then talk about recruiting. And honestly, if you have a hole in your bucket, right, what do? Pour more water in or fill that hole first? You've got to fill the hole. You've got to plug the bucket, the hole in the bucket, and then we can talk about how to fill the bucket more. I mean, common sense, right? Hard to do in a chaotic, always busy industry that we work in, but crucially important to success. 6 years ago, I published this book, Destination Company, and Danielle will put a link into the chat. Maybe she can do that right now, where you can get a free copy. I actually started writing this 10 years ago and figured the title out 10 years ago, started writing it, published it six and a half years ago. And it's still really relevant today. Okay, this may sound a little boring, but I'm going to read you the 7 pillars that I wrote about here. And we're going to cover a couple of these in this webinar. So just real quick. Pillar number 1, nurture your company by making vision an action verb. Pillar 2, live a culture of excellence. Pillar 3, treat recruiting like marketing and sales, which we will dive into depth a little bit more today. Pillar 4, values-based hiring and managing, still critical today. Pillar 5, people systems first, production systems second. Sounds counterintuitive for our industry, but very helpful as you go to scale. Pillar 6, embrace shared leadership, which we'll dive into today. And lastly, pillar 7, create an ownership culture, and we'll dive into that today. So where do you start? And if you've read this book a long time ago, reread it. It's extremely practical and it's still very topical and relevant. So where do you start if you want to focus on plugging the hole in the bucket? Take a temperature on your culture, right? I surveyed all my clients recently on recruiting tips and retention tips, in part for preparation for this webinar, but also just to get the pulse on everyone. And strong culture was a recurring theme for retention. Now, what does it mean, a strong culture, right? Well, first off, no matter, and I'll explain what it means in a little bit, but first off, let's start by taking the temperature on your culture right now. How healthy is it today? You all should do this. In fact, you should do it a couple times a year, is take the temperature. You can do an employee net promoter score. You can Google net promoter score if you don't know what I mean. There's a huge amount on the internet all about it. Generally, it's used with clients, but you can do it with employees, or you can create your own survey. Find out how well you're doing now, where the problems are now, where the holes are in the bucket, and then fix those holes and then remeasure again and keep doing it forever, if you will. But you have to start there to kind of take your temperature. Honestly, if you did just that and you hung up right now from the webinar, you would be so far ahead if you followed up on that and then took the feedback and then made changes. But we're going to give you a lot more tools here today in this webinar. So a strong culture was the recurring theme for my clients when I surveyed them. What does it mean? I'm going to give you 3 dimensions of culture. I'm going to give you kind of one definition, but 3 dimensions in that definition. So this one definition is all about bonds, how we are bonded together. But really, there's 3 dimensions of bonds. There's bonds between peers, so how employees bond with each other, right? They say that you quit your boss, but you stay working at a company because of your relationships. Now, that's sort of a saying, if you will, has truth, but it's not the only component to a successful company, but still very important. So bonds between peers is one dimension. The next is bonds between employee and owner, or if you're a larger company, employee and leader and owner. And so very important to be creating those bonds. And then lastly is the bonds between the employee and themselves and their inner self. How do they feel about themselves working at your company? And you can really control that. So you want to strengthen all 3 of those bonds between their peers, between you and other leaders, and between themselves and how they feel about quote unquote self-actualization at your company. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you can Google that as well. He talked about how the different levels of needs people have, and the top need is self-actualization, right? How you feel about how you're self-actualizing as a human being. And so that's what that last bond has to do with. And we'll dive into a bit more detail on all 3 of those and how you can strengthen all those. So chapter 6 of my book is on shared leadership. I'm going to pull out a few things from chapter 6, and I'm going to give you concrete examples. I'm going to pull out a few things from chapter 7, give you some concrete examples. And then I'm going to pull Lara in from Landesign. She's their HR executive, and she'll give you some real specifics as well and what they're doing to, become a destination company, increase retention. And then we'll talk about recruiting. So shared leadership, and I leafed through it today. I wrote it 10 years ago. I don't really reread it all the time. So I leafed through it today in prep, and I pulled out some points from chapter 6. A culture of opportunity will nourish and grow a team of high-performing leaders. That was one of my points in here. So not just this strong culture of bonds, which I just spoke about before, but also a culture of opportunity. So here I am forming the bonds with the peers, the owners, and myself, but I'm also, there's this culture of I can keep growing in the company. That's really important. That creates this shared leadership. And of course, you're going to hear all about career ladders and ways to grow your company, because that creates that culture of opportunity. If I join your company, I know that I'm going to have opportunities put in front of me as long as I'm taking the initiative and moving forward and grabbing those opportunities. So very important to create a destination company is it can't be stagnant. You can't be satisfied. Hey, we're at 2 million and we're sitting tight. We're not going to grow. Everybody sit still, right? That's not, you might be fine as the owner, but that's not what your employees want. They want that opportunity. Another point from that chapter is delegation. Now that's sort of a tried and true, maybe over discussed topic, but it's so important. Creating opportunities for people. And you either do it through delegating. Here, let me give you some of my responsibility, let's say as owner, so I can move up and work on higher level activities. Or as you're growing, you just create new roles and you let them fill those roles. And the career ladder is sort of a combination of both. As we're growing, the owner is moving up, so the general manager or the division manager is going to move up into general manager. One of the managers will move up into general manager, and so on and so on, so that the laborers can move up into foremen, can move up into supervisors. You get the drill. So that takes a growing company. And so you're either going to use sort of active delegation, and I talk about how to do that in the book, the delegation ladder, and just growing new roles. Both of those help create this shared leadership. There is a fallacy, and I want to read it to you here, about leadership. And I wrote this somewhere between 6 and 10 years ago. I'm going to read from the book here. 4 fallacies of leadership. I have the larger perspective and thus the better ideas. Fallacy number 1. My people don't care as much as I do. Fallacy number 2. It's my job. They expect me to figure this out, and they will accept what I come up with. Fallacy number 3. I am more educated, so I am probably right. Fallacy number 4. These are all fallacies that I see taking place where owners and leaders are trying to figure out all the systems and even the strategies themselves instead of involving the team. And so really the core principle of chapter 6 is co-creation. Shared leadership is about co-creation, including co-creation of systems. Who better to create a system than the person who has to use that system? We'll get Lara on here in a minute, and I'm sure it would not work so well if her boss, George and Brent, said, I'm going to create the HR systems and you go follow them. No, I am sure she's involved in the co-creation of systems and even involving others in the creation of their systems. So across your company, if you can create the shared leadership as co-creation, then people will buy into your systems and they'll really buy into the company and own the company because they have helped create it. So those are some concepts from the book here. Now I'm going to talk about some examples, really specific. Like I said, I just surveyed all my clients. I can't share with you the confidential things that came from that because that's a client only, but I can share with you quite a bit because quite a bit I taught them and I can share with you. And so here is 8 activities here, 8 examples of this building a culture and increasing retention strategies. Number 1 is monthly activities. All my clients are doing, well, not all my clients are doing recurring activities. And I would say the better companies are doing monthly activities, fun, team building. It can have some business facet if you want, but a reason to build these bonds between peers and even with owner and employee. monthly activities. You all can do something. It can be simple. It could be breakfast. It could be a coffee clutch, right? But then as you get going, you realize you can invest more and more. Many of my clients will pay for it, 2 hours, half day, 1 hour, whatever it is. It's on the clock, you show up. Part of being in the company. Example number 2, training showed up a lot in the survey responses. Now, that's a big issue, getting your hands on training. If you're smaller, it's more difficult. Heck, if you're bigger, it's more difficult. But it can be as simple as a training rodeo, like a 2-day training event a few times a year. And obviously, as you get bigger and grow more, you've really got to build it into multiple levels. That could be a whole separate webinar. But training, I've learned, is a big part of creating that culture that people want to stay working for. There's the owner reinvesting in me. Personal touches from the owner. It means a lot more to the employee than you may even know. Hey, checking in on you as you're loading up. How's your family doing? Just that personal check-in, maybe a little bit of personal mentoring means a lot to your employees. And so those personal touches need to keep happening. I was listening to Elon Musk's a book. I don't know if he wrote it. I think he wrote it. I think it was an autobiography on Elon Musk. Do you know that when he started up his SpaceX, he hired the first 2,000 employees himself? Tell me which landscape owner does the hiring on their first 2,000 employees. Oh my God. There's a guy who's committed, making those personal touches. I'm not saying you have to do that, but I am saying even as you get large, still an opportunity to make those personal touches. Number 4, I'm seeing a lot of companies do better and better benefits. That creates the sticky culture. Now, the key is don't assume you know which benefits your employees want. You don't know, but you can ask. It's okay to ask them. Paid time off, I have seen, is a recurring theme that people want. You may think everybody wants insurance, and they might, but you might be surprised what they really want based on your current employee makeup. But paid time off is definitely a recurring theme. Too many companies have the old-fashioned approach. Work for me for 10 years and I give you another week's vacation. Things just have to work a lot more quickly. There's got to be that sort of quid pro quo. I'm here, therefore I get benefits. Okay, you don't get them all on the first day, but you also can't wait 10 years, if you know what I mean. Quick turnaround on issues. As issues pop up, the quicker you address them to, they're your internal clients, the better culture you're going to have. So start by measuring the health, keep recurringly measure the health, and develop that culture where your employees know, hey, if I tell them something will actually take place. He or she will actually get something done. And then you'll start to get more feedback in between those surveys. So quick turnaround helps. Accountability helps with retention. I love this. Again, chicken and egg. I hear so much where people say, I can't hold my people accountable. I can't fire them. By the way, accountability does not equal firing. But people just throw their hands up to accountability because, hey, I can't even get them to show up on time. And yet, accountability is what creates the culture, what creates people wanting to, commit to you and do a better job for you. And so creating accountability around scorecards and what everybody has to do for their job and making it clear, giving them daily and weekly feedback. That accountability, you think of it as a stick, but it's also a carrot. All right, carrot on a stick. It's also a carrot that helps people want to stick around because your culture is very clear. You have clear boundaries, clear expectations. Think about the Marines. How do they pull it off? Or any military high-performing crew. How do they pull it off? They have such high standards. People are attracted to working and living in a place where there isn't chaos and things are organized and the rules are clear, right? So your accountability helps create the culture. It's chicken and egg, and you got to bring both to the party. We want chickens and eggs. You can't just wait and then throw up your arms. Using vision, values, and mission, making them real. I'm going to be writing on this more upcoming in a couple of my newsletters, because I think a lot of you are creating your values, getting your vision out there, maybe having a company mission, but it's static. It's up on a wall. We talk about it in our meetings even, but that's still static. It's like the 10 Commandments. How do you put those to work day in, day out, every day, every week? You know, hiring, firing, teaching, training. You go to Sunday school to learn what? Well, you might learn how to live the 10 Commandments, right? You have to teach your employees how to live your values and then make decisions by those values. That really makes this culture come alive. And lastly, my last example on this is, and it's a new one, flexibility. It pre-pandemic, I don't think it would have made the list. Post-pandemic, maybe it should have made the list, by the way, pre-pandemic, but it didn't. But post-pandemic, flexibility is going to go a long way to building your workforce. And there might be certain roles where you can't, but I was surprised. You know, I still learn every day. That's why I love teaching, because as the teacher, I keep learning. You know, that's really how my mind is hardwired. And so I really saw it in my survey with my clients, how more and more flexibility is really allowing people to grow at really any level. Now, you can't throw out the rules. We're not talking about flexibility of values, right? Or a vision or a mission, but, you know, really flexibility in how you organize and let people have a control over their job. That really means a lot. And that's going to lead me into chapter 7. And then I'm going to talk about that. And then Lara will bring you on. Creating an ownership culture. People want to have ownership over their roles. They want to have ownership of the company. And some of the examples I gave you speak directly to that. And that's where flexibility, giving somebody flexibility allows them in their world to take ownership of what they have committed to. So one of the issues I see is people are like, well, I'll give ownership when they've proven themselves. Chicken and egg again. All right, how long do they have to prove themselves to you? Really what's going on there is a lot of owners don't trust. They're just not trustworthy people. No, that's not the right phrase. They're not easily trusting people for whatever reason. They've gotten burned in the past. It's happened to every single owner more than once. So, okay, I get that. You've been burned many times in the past. Maybe you're a control freak. Maybe your owner wants to do it all themselves. And that's another reason for not trusting. But if you want people to take ownership, you have to give it to them. Here, take this, own this. I want you to take this and own it. And you have to really start, again, chicken and egg, start with some trust. I mean, sure, let them prove themselves. Don't do it. You know, I just hired you day one. Here's the keys to my car or truck. But within reason, you've got to let people prove themselves by giving them and allowing them to have ownership. Now, there's other ways to give ownership. Sharing numbers, by the way, is a way to give ownership. Let me educate you on our numbers. Let me educate you on how things work. You as a leader have to connect the dots. You have to educate, you know, here's your role and here's the company's results, whether it's sharing the P&L or just sharing, you know, maybe your scorecard in terms of hours. Could be simple, could be comprehensive, up to you. But you have to connect the dots. Here's what you're doing every day, and here's how it connects to our results. It's not clear at all, and you have to educate people over and over again on connecting these dots. That's really our responsibility as the leader, as the owner. Always informing and giving feedback on how you're doing and explaining and connecting the dots on what you're doing and how it connects to the results. Another thing I touch on in the book is entitlement versus expectation culture. We've got all these entitled people and this entitlement culture, and really we're trying to create an expectation culture. And that means we don't hand out huge Christmas bonuses because, you know, we used to do that in the past because A, that's what you did, or B, we didn't know how to measure results, or we weren't certain how to hold people accountable to results. We weren't certain how to set up performance, reward system. And obviously that's a lot that I do as a consultant, is help companies figure all these out and get it lined up. But really, just handing out money for no reason creates an entitlement culture. People just come to expect it. And so having an expectation culture, you want to raise, here's the career ladder. But putting inflation aside for a second, you want to raise, here's the career ladder. You want to share with us in the gains, here's how we do it. People like that. People appreciate that. Of course, we all like gifts, or some of us like gifts. Sure, throw me some money. Why not? But that doesn't deal with that inner need that I have of self-actualization, right? I said bonds with peers, bonds with the owner, and then bonding with oneself, self-actualization. That, when you can make me feel good about myself and make me part of a winning team, that creates a sticky culture. So a couple examples I'm going to give you, and then I'm going to call Lara on. One example is what I spoke about, profit sharing or gain sharing. It works in all corporate companies. I've been talking with a good friend of mine who works for Amazon. I guess you'd say she's pretty high up. She's a very valued tech person there. And part of her pay is pay, and part of it is shares of the company. And of course, yes, the shares have been going down. They've really gotten hammered in the past few weeks. But that company is, I know, I don't think she gave me inside information, but I can tell you that company is still moving and shaking. They got a lot going on. So as an employee, you're happy to get those shares because you get to then gain share, right? As the stock goes up, your worth goes up, your net worth goes up. And so I'm not saying that you should give out ownership, but that's where profit sharing, gain sharing, you can see is pretty common out there. You can also do ad hoc rewards around solving problems. Hey, I'll just give you an example. It takes us a half hour to get out in the morning. I think we can get this down to 7 minutes. We're going to work over the next month to get it down to 7 minutes where we're going to get out in the morning. We're going to brainstorm every day and we're going to work on it. And if we can get there by the end of the month, here's a reward for everybody, in that crew or in that division. Why not turn your goals into challenges with fun and ad hoc rewards? So that's another way to help create an ownership culture. And lastly, I'm going to come back. I know I've been saying career ladders a few times, but that's a great way to help people see how they can become more important, right? You want a better title. It's like getting bars on your uniform. If you're in the military, right? You want another bar or a stripe on your uniform. I'm not sure what the technical term for that is. You want a raise. Maybe you get more perks with that raise. And so the career ladder really helps and shows people, but you have to do it actively. You can't just say, there it is, figure it out. Doesn't work. I've seen a lot of companies say, well, I'm doing this and that, but I'm not getting any traction. What you pay attention to is what gets traction, nothing else. So whatever you talk about every morning, every meeting, every weekly meeting, every ad hoc discussion, whatever you're talking about is where people's eyeballs and attention go and where the traction happens. It doesn't mean that you're all work and no play. You still want to build bonds, right? Spending personal time, getting to know people personally. But if all you do on the work side is bring up problems, complaints day to day, then that's all that your people will focus on. And so you've got to take time to invest in your people by paying their salaries and hourly pay while you're talking about these important things, right? You don't say, hey, get off the clock so I can talk to you about the career ladder. No, you invest in them on the clock. That's an investment in your people. So I started off saying, what comes first, recruiting or retention? Retention, becoming a destination company so that you're naturally a better recruiter. I surveyed my clients, like I said, and many are fully staffed up. Some are overstaffed, which is something I definitely urge, and some are almost fully staffed. And we'll talk about some recruiting things that they do in a minute here. We've got about 15 minutes left here, I know. But becoming that destination company and making that the foundation for how you run your company, the foundation. On that foundation, you can build as multiple story house as you want, as big a company as you want. Lara, do you want to hop on here and share some great examples with everyone?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Like Jeffrey said, I am the HR executive here from Landesign. I feel like I wear a lot of different hats. The most important one, though, is what he's been speaking about: retention, hiring, our impression of our employees, the company culture. When they approached me about talking today, the goal was to get out some strategic retention points, I guess, if you will. So I have three kind of areas that I kind of hone in on with my new employees and current employees. My first is your initial impression. What is that new person coming into your family? I always refer to Landesign family. I feel like I spend more time with these guys than I do my own family in some cases. So what is their impression coming in? What do they think about us? What kind of what do we look like to them? So that's really important to me. We've worked really hard the last handful of years on our internal branding, what our outward projection is to people, whether that's an external client or, like we just talked about, the internal client, our employees. So having someone come in and looking to be a potential family member, team member for us is important for me to kind of give them the full gamut of what Landesign can offer. Whether that's a career choice for them to just being part of something bigger, something growing. I want them to see what we're all about. My second point is training, and I know Jeff talked about that a little bit too. I think I used a bit of a pun. I want to help them get their feet planted. Landscape joke, haha. But in all reality, training them and helping them find their way, helping them feel comfortable with what their duties are initially, and showing them a path to get to where they want to be. My goal is to bring people in that want this to be their home. I want them to have a career with us. I want them to stick it out with us. I want them to grow with us, bring their ideas to the table. We are growing exponentially, and I need someone that's in it to win it, if you will. So for me, training those people will allow them, give them the tools, put those skill sets in their toolbox to stick around, to see where they can make a difference. And also, I want them to have aspirations to grow with the company. I have so many, just speaking for my production staff, I have so many guys that have come in and have gone from laborer to foreman to supervisor. In fact, some of them have even come and worked into the office, which is pretty cool to see them coming in as an estimator or designer. So having that training all the way from ground zero up to where they want to be is huge. We have even made I guess an official trainer from our staff. He's a seasoned foreman, and he takes in all of our incoming laborers, whether their craft is going to be landscaping or hardscaping, and he helps them kind of hone in on their craft. They might have more strength as a hardscaper, and so he'll direct our supervisor, hey, he needs to be on a wall crew, or hey, he's actually killer at planting and he can read a spec like nobody else, so he needs to go the landscape crew. So just kind of helps us read and see strengths and weaknesses and build on those too. And then lastly, FaceTime. That's where I feel like I come in a lot too, is checking in, gauging my employees' temperature. What are we doing and what are we not doing to help retain them? Team Engine has really helped me there. Not even talking about the recruiting aspect, which I can talk about for days because they have been insanely helpful with that. I mean, I was just running some numbers looking at how many people we've hired from Team Engine, and how many are still here. It's incredible. I've got 64 hires, 44 people are here still. It's crazy. So that's important to me. But on the flip side of that, my FaceTime, using Team Engine communication tools to push out surveys, which we're starting to dabble in a little bit more, but also communicating with my people. Landesign is actually headquartered in one area and my production staff's in another. And then we also have 2 other locations, one in Nashville and one in Columbia. I'm only one person. I am the only HR person for all of these people. I cannot be in all of those places at once. It's hard for me to show face, but I think it's very important to. So for me, I'm traveling up to Columbia. I'm going out to our nursery where our production staff in St. Louis deploys. I have plans to go to Nashville to show face. But more importantly, I need them to have an open line of communication. They all have my cell phone number and they definitely use it. But this communication tool inside of Team Engine allows them to send in receipts, ask questions about PTO. I'm managing it alongside my payroll benefits administrator, the general manager of the company. He's also on there administering it too. So it's really nice that we can all have a platform where people feel heard. And that really helps me gauge and show face, whether that's actually physically showing face or just a line of communication. So that's kind of where I excel there, is showing face and helping solve those problems and being a lifeline, of liaison. My job is human resources. My whole being here is to be the liaison between our people and ownership leadership. So,
you might be a better face of the company than the owner.
I won't tell him you said that.
No, my point is, he's focused on the parts he loves doing.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's extremely personable. So I'm not saying not personable, but
he's pretty cool. I'll give him that.
But you have that energy, that youthful energy that just,
oh, thanks.
It's a good compliment.
I appreciate that.
I'm going to, I'm going to see if I can pin both of us, or let me see how this pinning works. I guess I can only pin one of us. So I'm pinning me for a second. I'm going to talk about a couple recruiting tips, and then I think we'll have time for some Q&A. So recruiting, I think it's important that everybody understands that recruiting is both strategic and tactical. Many of my clients are fully staffed or close to it. I didn't even ask Lara ahead of time. I probably should have, but Lara, how are you? How are you guys on staffing?
Well, we were fortunate to get our H2B guys this year, which is great. And I ended up getting an additional 2 guys. So they've really lent a hand to our backlog. I would say fully staffed for Landesign, I'm probably about 4 guys short right now from being fully staffed, which I feel like is a pretty big win.
How many,
considering the hiring climate right now? But
if you were an 8-employee company, that would be tough, but you're a little larger. So how big are you?
Oh, just on Landesign, and I'm HR for our sister companies as well. But just Landesign, I'm roughly, I would say I'm close to 70 right now with the H2B guys. That fluctuates. On a good day, I'm probably about 70, 75, right around there.
So you're 71, you wish you were 75, I guess is what I'm hearing. So that's close to being fully staffed. That's awesome. So, by the way, I don't know if you realize that I surveyed your boss, and I'll be sending him the results of the survey. Larry, you better You better ask them for the
Oh, I will.
when they come.
Is that Brent or George?
They're both on the email.
Okay.
Lara has two bosses, an owner and a CEO, but that's a different webinar, actually. Actually, I do a podcast for those that don't know that. I do a podcast in the industry called The Ultimate Landscape CEO. And I did one with George, I don't know, a year ago, roughly. So you can hear Lara's boss on that podcast. And he talks about Brent, the person he brought in to help run the company. You can hear that process. Okay, a couple things on recruiting. Everything you do for recruiting, and it's the same thing as, what was it, chapter 3 in here, or chapter 4, chapter 3. Everything you do for recruiting is really what you're already doing for marketing and sales. Like, you already know how to get fully staffed if you're willing to do it. Too many people are drowning in lack of employees, but deep down, you know what to do, or at least the knowledge is out there that you can do it. Do you have time? Do you believe it enough to invest in it? Are you willing to pull the trigger on all the right things? That's up to you. And really, I know it's again, chicken and egg. If I had more employees, I'd have more time. All right, so how do we get those more employees? Well, first off, let's fix the hole in the bucket. Let's assume we've done that. So number one, I'm just going to give you 4 recruiting tips, the biggest recurring items. Number one is encouraging referrals through talking about it with your employees, through referral bonuses, and really making a big deal and a recurringly big deal. There's so many positive things you can do by encouraging employee referrals. And there's a lot of detail to it, what to do, what not to do. Some of you struggle with that because you feel like you've tapped through the veins, so to speak, like a gold vein. If you're hunting for gold in the gold rush, there's veins of minerals. And same thing with referrals, right? You can tap out referrals through different sources because every client only has so many clients to refer. Every employee has only so many employees to refer. Some of you feel like you've tapped it out, but the majority of you really haven't done a good enough job encouraging those referrals, because I see that with so many of my clients that's sort of a foundation. Number 2, use professionals. Use someone like Lara in-house. If you're smaller, you can outsource it. Use professional recruiters. All my clients have access to both professional headhunters and professional recruiters. And those are 2 different things, by the way. A headhunter hunts for people that are active they hunt for people that are not looking for a job and they're working somewhere else. That's what a headhunter does. A recruiter looks for people that are out on the market looking for work. So you really need to use both. So use these professionals that are out there. Don't try to do it all yourself. Don't just dump it on your operational managers and expect all of them to become magical HR people. I know that's how everyone does it initially, and that's how our whole industry did it, 20 years ago, 10 years ago even. Now we hire professionals, and it used to be seen as overhead we don't want to pay. And now it's the magic ingredient in everything you do. It's what helps you scale. It's what helps you make money. It's that investment. You can't afford not to do it. So that's number 2. Number 3, use a CRM. Team Engine is the sponsor here. A lot of my clients use Team Engine. If you're a client and you're not, you can email me and I'll give you a special way to get a discount with Team Engine. There's others out there, but Team Engine works very well. And I would say, not all my clients use Team Engine, but the plurality. The most common one they use is Team Engine, and they do say that it has been a big factor in recruiting. Has a lot of tools in there. This whole texting, ability to text, it acts like a CRM, which is what you need. right? Treat recruiting like you do marketing. Treat it the same, you'll get just as good results. Lastly, social media. You have to promote yourself. I wrote about this in my newsletter. And by the way, if you're not signed up for my newsletter, I think if you buy the book or if you download the book, it'll sign you up right away. If not, go to my website, homepage, go to the bottom and you can sign up. I'm always putting out free tips on how to run your business. And this past week, I spoke about using social media. If you build a better mousetrap, people will beat a path to your door. That is not true. I don't know who came up with that. I'm going to Google it. It's not correct. You have to build a better mousetrap and then market the heck out of that mousetrap. You simply can't build a better mousetrap and then sit back and wait. You've got to market it. Social media is how you market your company to other employees. So it's got to be part and parcel of everything you do. So those are 4 recruiting tips. That's what I wanted to share with you today. I went over a couple of minutes, but I have time, Lara, if you have time, and we can handle Q&A from anybody here. Danielle, you want to facilitate that?
Yeah, I would say if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop those into the chat. And I am also going to share a screen here with the details for Jeffrey's book, as well as anyone who's interested in checking out Team Engine. You can follow that link there and sign up for a free 7-day trial. But in the meantime, let's see here if we have any questions in the chat. We did have someone asking for a little clarification on CRM, customer relationship manager, candidate relationship manager, client relationship manager. It's all about using the software to keep track of.
Yes, CRM means manager, but CRM really is a software. And that's what softwares like Team Engine is, right? It's a CRM for employees. I mean, plus much more, I'm assuming, but.
All right. Any questions for Jeffrey or Laura from the crowd? Feel free to throw those in the chat, or you can raise your hand as well.
All right. You know what I'd like to know? If you guys can put in the chat, one idea you took from this webinar that you're going to take action on. Everything I do is about accountability. So let us be your accountability partner and just type in the chat, what's your main action from today's webinar? Someone's asking about hosting your own job fair. Have people had success? Yes, it's a great idea. And there's multiple ways to host your own job fair. You can be as simple as an open house where you include your employees to be there with you and you let other people come in. I would do it between like 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock or 5 and 7. You know, at the end of the day, a little bit into the evening, but not too late. Those are very successful. You can do it informally or formally. Oh, love how people are talking about what they're going to do here.
Jeff, can I give a shout out to you really fast?
Oh, Lara, you can do whatever. These shout outs are great.
So I can't remember the first year we worked with you. Was that 4 years ago now?
No,
when we came to Connecticut?
It's got to be longer.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not
sure.
It feels like 4 years, more than 4 years.
So one thing that Jeffrey really taught us when we actually took a little executive team field trip to Connecticut and spent a few days up there with him. And one thing that we kind of thought we were doing, but really hadn't, was solidifying our mission and values. And we did that up there, actually. If I'm telling the truth, the leadership team is what it was called at the time. The leadership team, we went out. We left everybody else at the hotel. We went out just trying to think of what are our values. And we actually we went to a local bar if I'm being honest. And we came up with our value system, and it's called Drive. And it is incredible. We have that everywhere. It is visible, but we live by that. We hire by that. We fire by that. We do everything with that intention in mind. And that's something that we really took and learned from you, Jeffrey. And I think that's helped us create the culture that we have. Culture is going to be a challenge all the time. It's ever changing. So I think as a company, you have to have that foundation and be able to grow and mold with that culture as it comes at you. So that allows us to have that strong foundation.
Amen.
Yeah, and I love, Lara, you said you called it, to kind of summarize them all up into one, you call it Drive, right?
Yes.
And I think that's really important, because people hear mission and values and they think it's a bunch of corporate jargon and it's in one ear and out the other. But when you're able to come up with a nice way like that to kind of summarize it, but then also, you can say, we hire and by Drive, and people know what that means, because it kind of embodies everything that you stand for.
Right. And we did all of our internal branding to that. I mean, our kind of tagline is "Your dreams are Drive." Just it all just it was all perfect. I mean, it's been fun to see how it's grown over the years to what it is today.
Definitely.
If you brought your team to my retreat center again, Lara, you could come to New Orleans instead of Connecticut.
I wouldn't hate that. I did love Connecticut, though. I loved learning about the history there in your old neighborhood. But I'm down to come to New Orleans.
Well, we'll have to have a talk about that. There's another question here. Can Canadian companies use Team Engine?
At this point in time, we are only serving United States customers.
Oh, bummer. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jen.
But it's not completely off the table, just not right at the moment.
Dale Dreyer wants to know, I guess this question is for you, Lara, about internal training program. Is there a budget per employee that you use as a guide?
Actually, no. I mean, we want to get them out and moving in a productive crew as soon as possible. There are some job openings where we don't require any experience. And so they may be going with them. Once they do their initial training, they may be going with a pretty seasoned foreman, where the foreman can kind of do on the job continuous training as well. But there's no budget initially. They're hired in, and we kind of use that as we'll say, quote unquote, cost of doing business to train them and get them comfortable with what they're doing and moving them on out.
What is your, I know you told me not to spring questions like this on you, so you can say I don't know, but do you have a dollar amount in your budget overall for training?
Ooh, we do, yes, but that encompasses a lot of other random things with it.
Right.
So that would be hard for me to pinpoint exactly. This is field production training versus, I think our OSHA training's in there. I think we have CPR and first aid training. We pay for all of those things for our employees. I could find out and get back to you on that.
Dale, yeah. Dale, why don't you, if you email me, I'll connect you to Lara, if you're still listening.
And I replied to the question earlier, but I think I just replied to that person. So anybody who happened to hop on the call late, or maybe wants to share this with their boss or direct reports, this webinar was recorded. We'll be sending out a follow-up email with the link to watch the recording, as well as a link to Jeffrey's book and the link to sign up for a free Team Engine trial if that's something you're interested in. People are starting to head out and conduct interviews and continue their recruiting efforts. So I think it's a good point to call it a day. Thanks again to everyone who attended, and of course to Lara and Jeffrey for sharing their endless wealth of knowledge with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, everyone.